Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up, my biggest takeaways from Raiders GM Tom Telesco and everything he said at the NFL Combine today. He had a press conference. I did put out a video earlier today, which is the entire interview. If anybody wants to go check it out, it's about an 18-minute video. The link is available to y'all in the description of this video that you're watching right now. So if you want to go check it out, please do so. And if you want to see more interviews throughout the Combine this week, we're going to be interviewing players, coaches, GMs. Lots and lots of interviews are going to be coming out this week. So if you want that type of stuff, because we don't usually put out that type of content here on the Raiders Report, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because we got a lot of good stuff coming for you this week. All right, so what I did here is I did my biggest takeaways from what Telesco had to say. And maybe my biggest takeaway is that they need to give a mic to the people asking questions, because, man, I can barely hear what the hell they're saying. First thing, though, that Telesco noticed about the Raiders was this was a mentally tough team and a physically tough team. And the reason why that I love that Telesco said that is because one of my biggest knocks on Josh McDaniels was when your head coach sits when he pees, which, you know, is what it is, and you're just clearly not a leader of men, that takes on the personification of your team. Now that Antonio Pierce is here, and when Antonio Pierce talks, people listen. Antonio Pierce might not have the resume of a lot of these other head coaches, but he's a leader of men. He's got that mental toughness. He's a tough dude, and I think it's one of the reasons why Raiders players respected him so much. Like, when you see the output of what the Raiders used to look like with Josh McDaniels compared to the way that the Raiders ended up looking with Antonio Pierce, totally different. On top of that, out of the 9 games Pierce coached, 2 of the games the Raiders did not commit a penalty. Like, only 7 teams since 1960 can actually say that. This is a team that goes out there, they play their freaking asses off for Antonio Pierce because he does the exact same thing for them. So the fact that that was the first thing that Telesco said, I felt it and I love it, and I was really fired up by a lot of the stuff that Telesco and Antonio Pierce are going to bring here to this team. Let's go to takeaway number 2. He really values the medical process the most. And one of the very first questions that the Raiders GM was asked was essentially like, when you come to the Combine, what is like the number one thing that you're looking for? And he mentioned 4 things in terms of what's most important to him. He said spending time with the Raiders staff and having those conversations. I mean, think about it. This is the first time that this entire brand new staff, 31 new coaches and staffers are a part of, and they're going to be able to get to bounce ideas off of each other. They're going to be able to talk about certain prospects, what they thought of this guy, what they think of this guy. He did say the medical process was the most important to him. He said measurable data, like they're going to be looking at hand size, how heavy somebody is, how tall somebody is. And then he said that interviews are nice, but it's like not going to change what they think of a player. But the reason why I want to bring up medical process here is this, because the main conversation around the Raiders this entire offseason is going to be quarterback. It's going to be the exact same thing in the NFL draft as well. And the one QB that I personally believe could have his draft stock knocked down the most due to medical is Michael Penix Jr. And for people that watched this show before know that it's not all that much of a surprise, but if he is somebody that's on the Raiders draft board, there is a chance that he might fail his medical. And if he does end up failing his medical, and based off of what Telesco said, I'm confident enough to say if he fails his medical and what Telesco said about how much he cares about medical, you could take him right off the Raiders' big board. Hasn't happened yet. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does, keep that in the back of your mind. Here's going to be the pinned comment on today's show. And if you're like, Mitch, what the hell is a pinned comment? Pinned comment is the number one question that I want you to answer from watching the show. Literally, when you click on this video, there's going to be a comment, and it's going to be literally pinned to the top, and it's going to say, what is the most important thing you look for in the Combine? Do you look for a player's 40-yard dash time? Do you look for a QB's hand size? Do you look at, I don't know, the 3-cone drill for a defensive end? It's one of the things that I personally look for. So what is the most important thing you look for at the NFL Combine? Scroll on down, and please give me your answers. Let's go to my third takeaway here from Tom Telesco, NFL Combine presser. And Josh Jacobs returning is still up in the air. And I got about 5 things and 5 reasons why. To me, when Telesco talked about Jacobs, and I got to give sometimes these guys credit that go up there because they don't want to play their full hand. Like, they don't want to say, oh, this is what I want to do at running back. This is what I want to do in free agency. This is what I'm going to do in the draft. They have to kind of tiptoe around it, which is not always an easy thing. But to me, facial expressions do tell you a lot. And there were 5 things that Telesco said about Josh Jacobs, about him potentially returning. I'll tell you what those 5 things were here in just a second, but I got to show some love to Game Time, today's sponsor on the Raiders Report. Nation, create an account and redeem code RaidersChat for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You can forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and a whole lot more. I also realize that I say get exclusive flash deals on tickets, and maybe for somebody that doesn't have the app, they don't know what the heck that I'm talking about. So when you go on the Game Time app, and the reason why that I love it, and the reason why you can get those great last-minute tickets, and I'm going to tell this as a story because it's the easiest way for me to be able to do it. So me and my buddies, when we were all hanging out, and this was right around when the Rangers were in the World Series. For those that don't know, I live in Dallas, Texas. Rangers were in the World Series, and a bucket list item for me was I want to go to a World Series game before I die, before my Chucky head goes down, right? I want to be able to say that I went to a World Series game. So the cool thing that what Game Time does is they have these things. It's like a flash deal. And when you go on the app, you can swipe it, and it gives you like the best deal, the deal of the day type of thing. And it only lasts like 15, 20 minutes or so. So what we were trying to do is while we were waiting to see how many people end up going to the World Series, we were swiping to get that flash deal. And we were like, maybe we're going to get something really good. But because Game Time is so great and like they don't want to have any empty seats there, we just sat there and we waited and waited. I didn't get to go. My buddies, they decided to pull the trigger and they ended up getting their tickets. But like, it's just another reason why I think Game Time is so smart. They don't want to have empty seats. They want to put butts in those seats, and they're willing to do it at the lowest price guaranteed. So if you want to go get started again, you need to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code RaidersChat. That way they know that I sent you for $20 off your first purchase. Hopefully you enjoy the app. I also think that you will, because to me, when you go to an event like this, it's not only about going and watching the Raiders, the Las Vegas Knights, the Texas Rangers in the World Series. It's the memories that you're going to be able to create with it. All right, let's go to the 5 reasons here why I don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to be returning based off of what Telesco said at the Combine presser. They did say that he's not going to use the franchise tag, and this should not surprise anybody. We've been saying it for weeks on here that it wasn't anticipated that the Raiders ended up using the tag. With the new salary cap increase, it would have cost the Raiders $14.1 million to tag Jacobs. I think Jacobs is a phenomenal back, but I will continually say for me personally, and it's based on the Raiders and the Raiders only, I would offer Jacobs $8.5 million per year on a 2-year deal, $17 million guaranteed. There's going to be a lot of people out there that say, well, Mitch, he's going to get to that. He's worth more than that. He might be. But based on the Raiders and with all their other needs, that's just the contract I'd be willing to offer Jacobs. Let's go to the next reason here. Telesco said that he's not sold on the lead back role. And Jacobs is a lead back. He is a bell cow back. And if you're going to have a back like Jacobs, well, if he's not sold on the lead back role, why am I going to pay a running back lead back type of money? Which is, again, one of the reasons why I do not think that Jacobs is going to get a big-time payday from the Raiders. Like, it's going to be one of those things where, talk is cheap unless you back it up. And Jacobs has said multiple times that it's not about the money for him. It's about the years, or it's about the guarantees. Well, I'm giving him a 2-year, $17 million guaranteed deal, which might not be a lot to some people, but I think it's a lot of money in general. So to me, he's got to be able to prove that he can be a lead back, even if it means he's not going to get paid to be one. Then next thing he said was this: need 2 to 3 players that can rotate. Based off of everything Telesco said and has said so far, going into this interview, I was like, Jacobs is not coming back to the Raiders. Because then he said that he likes to see 2 to 3 players that can rotate. And I do think it's one of the reasons why the Raiders ended up hiring Carnell Cadillac Williams to be the running back coach, because he ran the exact same type of running back system at Auburn, where they went with more of a running back by committee. If you know that Zamir White's there and you potentially have to add 2 more backs, does it really make sense to go out there and spend heavy? That I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, you can go out and draft a running back, but you have 9 picks, and I don't know if I want to invest more than 1 pick in a running back in this year's draft. Here's where my mind totally changed on Jacobs and whether or not he's coming back, and whether I don't know if he is or not, right? Like, to me, it is a legit coin flip at this current spot. But one of the things Telesco said, which I thought was kind of funny, because again, actions speak louder than words. Telesco did say that he wants to take care of his own, and even though he didn't draft Jacobs, he would love to be able to bring him back onto the squad. The reason why that I laugh, and the reason why I'm like, well, you got to practice what you preach, is because when he was with the Chargers, he did the exact opposite of this. He never kept his own and was just like always more than willing to move on or bring somebody else in. So this is going to be an intriguing offseason for Telesco. And then the last one is this. The free agent running backs are talented. He said that, I forget the exact wording that he said, but he hinted at the idea that, yeah, there's a lot of really talented running backs in this free agency class. Also, in an interview after his official combine interview, I saw it on Twitter, I believe it was Vic Tafer put it out, said something along the lines of, Telesco said that he thought that he was going to have to lean on free agency a little bit more heavily than what he's done in years past. So we went through all those things with Jacobs, and I know it was a lot to digest. So my question is yes or no. Will Josh Jacobs play on the Raiders this upcoming season? If you think yes, well, then be an overachiever. Give me a contract. I mean, I already told you. If the answer is yes to me, my projection is 2 years, $17 million, fully guaranteed. If the answer is no, well, let's get a little bit fun and creative here. What team do you think Jacobs would go play for? The number one team that I believe would have the most interest in Jacobs and be willing to pay him that's not the Las Vegas Raiders, that team name to me is the Baltimore Ravens. Let's go to takeaway number 4. I wouldn't take anything off the table as far as trading up or back in regards to a quarterback. So I really, really wish somebody would have had the cojones to literally be like, are you trading up for a quarterback? Is Jaden Daniels your guy, right? Like, that's what I wanted somebody to ask. And Telesco did a good job of being able to, tiptoe around it. But what I'm going to take away from what Telesco said is, if anything's on the table, if I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and if there is a trade-up target, which people that watch the show know my answer here, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. Like, to me, if they end up trading up in the NFL draft, it's not for Caleb Williams, it's not for Drake May, it's for Jaden Daniels because of that relationship with Antonio Pierce and Marvin Lewis. If they end up trading back, okay, let's say they take somebody best available at number 13, some of the things that Telesco said, again, maybe it's just because I was told by a source that he's got Bo Nix in his mind, but based off of everything Telesco said today, he said medicals concern him. Well, that makes me a little bit more concerned about Michael Penix Jr. The next thing that I have, my next takeaway, goes also in with the whole Bo Nix connection. But to me, if the Raiders were to trade back in the back end of round 1, or if they were to try to trade up from 44 into the back end of round 1, the QB that they would target, based off of my understanding, is the quarterback from Oregon, Bo Nix. Takeaway number 5 here, he doesn't mind the idea of having an older quarterback entering the NFL draft. So one of the things that he was asked was like, are you only going to target like younger quarterbacks, and how does the transfer portal impact all of these different things going on in today's day and age when, let's face it, a few years ago, it just was not the factor in that. But again, what did he say? If he doesn't mind the idea of having an older quarterback in the NFL draft, I believe out of all the QBs at the NFL Combine, don't quote me on this because I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but I do know Bo Nix is one of the oldest. I don't know if he is the oldest. But when you look at QBs at the Combine based on age, out of the top 6, and when I would say this is the top consensus 6, Bo Nix is the oldest, and he's going to be 25, and he's older than some QBs that are in the NFL right now, which is kind of a wild thing to think about. And I know how the NFL works based on connections. Bo Nix has a lot of connections that are currently on the Raiders as it stands right now. Out of the back end of QBs here, because I just wanted to show you all the QBs and their age, the other very old quarterback, Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. I would hope that the Raiders don't pull the trigger on him. He was really bad at the Senior Bowl. The only reason why I get nervous about it is because I know Telesco loves himself some Notre Dame players. And then my final takeaway, number 6 here, they're not trading Davante Adams. Say it with me. The Raiders aren't trading Davante Adams. And you knew that. I knew that. But for whatever reason, the NFL people just wanted to keep on throwing out the idea of the Raiders could trade Davante. The Raiders could trade Davante. And literally, Telesco just said, yeah, that ain't going to happen. He's a Raider. So guess what? Davante Adams, he's a Raider. I'm a Raider. And if you're a Raider, and if you made it this far in the video, make sure you spam RO4L to show me you're a Raider.